fourth edict already burns for your world. Your affliction upon her will soon be erased. The mother soul must.
Hey, Mason here. So I thought I'd make one final video for my Frost Mage skeleton build. I was playing Storm Mages, I swapped over to Frost Mages, and they've performed extremely well, and I basically min-maxed this build too as much as I want to push it. In terms of cost, the build probably costs 100 to 150 divines, but most of the upgrades in the end were like 35 divines per upgrade, 28 divines per upgrade, that kind of stuff. It scales exponentially, but I think this is pretty viable for all levels of content. I'll just quickly show gem links if people are interested. Fire Mastery, Heft, Culling Strike, Maim, Wildfire. Aberration, Font of Blood, Persistence, Inspiration, Dance. Strip Away, Magnified Effect. Hypothermia has Heightened Curse, Ritualistic, Hex Bloom, and Curse Ground. I don't think Hex Bloom actually works with Curse Ground, but I have it in here anyways. Winter has Unleash, Chain, Cold Exposure, Inevitable Critical. Clerics have Last Gasp, Minion Mastery, Ingenuity. This one has Scattershot, Arcane Tempo, Cold Mastery, Cold Pen, and Wild Shards. Cold Pen is so that I can farm Simulacrum with the 50% more monster resistance mod that appears in Simulacrum. I was AFK farming them. And Wild Shards is also for clear in Simulacrum in particular. If you want damage, you want Minion Mastery here. So you want this jewel in this slot right here. And you want Conk Effect in the Wild Shard slot. That's for bossing. For my last two skellies, Conduction, Stormfire, Overcharge, Lightning Pen, Coursing Current. These are just for shock. That's the entire purpose. For gear, this is a +3 mace with 15 spirit from the Soul Core. This is a +2 Minion Helms high ES double res helmet. This was 17 divines. This is a high spirit, increased damage, increased cast speed, +5 to minion skill scepter. This was 35 divines. This is double spirit, so spirit implicit, spirit on the actual thing itself. +3 minion gems, strength and lightning resistance amulet. This is just strength, elemental res, and fire res. You don't need the strength. It's just to make sure that you can wear this 54 strength requirement scepter. This Vental's Gamble is just for the spirit. The rest of the lines are pretty shit, and I was overcapped on res, so it has a bit of minus res on it. This chest piece was 8 divines. This is a spirit high ES chest piece. The reduced ignite duration helps because you're playing Pyromantic Pact, so you will ignite yourself and this reduces that duration, but it's not needed. These gloves were 15 divine, they are triple res high ES gloves. This was 4 divine, it is a corrupted +3 to maximum fire res belt that has base of 5 fire res, 5% fire res, and these boots are 23% undead minion reservation boots. They corrupted to 23%, so their base is to 20%. This was 1 divine. The removes 15% of life recovered from mana doesn't affect us because we're playing Infernal Flame, so it's just free increased life recovered. This was also 1 divine. It's just high duration, high charges. You don't need those. Optional. I'll show you the skill tree quickly as well. As in the scene, we are playing Pyromantic Pact, Seething Body, Loyal Hellhound, and Altered Flesh. You might be like, why Pyromantic Pact? You're missing out on the Bear's Will reservation. And the reason why is because I'm playing CI. So not many Infernalists are playing CI, but because I was farming Simulacrum and I wanted to basically AFK them. And when I say AFK, I obviously don't mean full AFK. I mean, I press Pain Offering, I press Curse on the bosses. I don't need to press it anytime else. And I occasionally make sure that my energy shield is topped up by Grim Feast by walking around. But this allows you to take a lot of reduced damage in Simulacrum because a lot of the bosses, so Kosis in particular, does a lot of chaos damage. So you don't take any damage from him, more or less. You take a lot less. Because of Chaos Inoculation, that means that this node does not work because this reserves your life, and you have 1 life, which means that you end up taking Pyromantic Pact and Seething Body, and this gives you another benefit. It means that you're not affected by Mana Bubble mobs. So the Mana Bubble mobs in particular are the ones that, the Mana Donuts. So I'll just show a quick clip of this happening. Just give me a second. So you can see here, Mana Donut appears, I'm not taking any damage from him. It's free. So that's the reason why Infernal Flame ends up being a pretty good upside. And it also gives you 20% more damage because of this particular node here, so if you manage it properly. I'll just show my jewels quickly. This is a Corrupted Blood jewel. It is bad, but the implicit was needed for farming Simulacrum, because Kosis has Corrupted Blood blades that spin and they track you. This jewel here is maximum ES and double minion damage lines, so you can either pick attack and cast speed, critical bonus, critical chance, or increased damage. Attack and cast speed I think is pretty mandatory, as in like it gives you a lot more damage than the other lines. This jewel here is again max ES and double minions, and it also has area of effect of curses as a benefit. This jewel here was I think 35 divines. It is best in slot for Infernalist. It is plus spirit and plus max fire res, and it was divined to be max 12 roll. You don't need this. This gives me about 70 spirit based on the setup here. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 times 12. That's how much spirit it gives. But that's not necessary, and that was one of the later upgrades I had. This jewel here is triple minion damage line. The chaos damage is useless. This jewel here is ES and double damage line, as I shown before. And this jewel here is ES, triple minion damage line, sorry. So that's that. I will quickly just explain, there's a cold skill node here that gives you, this actually works on your frost mages, so this is extremely mandatory to take. And you can see some of the green lines, these are the weapon swap lines. And I'll talk about that briefly now. So in terms of scaling damage, on my offhand I'm running a Chiming Staff, and Chiming Staff says, gain a stage when you spend a total of 50 mana, and each stage gives you 14% more spell damage, and it's 14% because I'm not swapped. So if I swap, you see that's actually 15% because of the levels from this stuff here. So it gives it plus 4 spell levels. So it's level 23 now. There is a bug with this and Infernal Flame. I think it's been reported on the bug forums, but I don't think it's been patched, and I've been abusing the shit out of it. But the TLDR is that when you press Sigil of Power, and then when you roll in Sigil of Power, or when you block, it automatically full stacks it for you. So there's no need for you to spend mana. I'm not spending any mana. I don't have any mana to spend because I'm playing Infernal Flame. But I've been abusing this. It gives a shit ton of damage to your mobs. But even if this gets patched, it will still be a 14% more damage multiplier to all your little minions. So that's something to keep in mind. It's why Sigil of Power is the best offhand swap for this particular setup, running CI and Infernal Flame. Because of this bug, more or less. It will be patched eventually, that's for sure. That more or less covers most of the build itself. For the content I've done, I've basically beat the early access, more or less. The only thing I don't have here is 6 out of 8 for Expedition because I couldn't find the boss again. I've been fishing for him. I'm not sure if I'll beat him. I'll probably will just buy logbooks and eventually just beat him. But yeah, I've got beaten every single Uber boss at the highest level of difficulty, and I also beat the Zesht Uber boss with a friend to do some DPS testing at 2-player difficulty at the highest difficulty. So it took about 15 seconds, 75 million DPS, about 75 million damage. That's boss HP, and it's about 5 million DPS because it took about 15 seconds. But that was with the wrong setup. That was with the clearing setup with the Wild Shards and Cold Pen. So damage is extremely good on the setup. And you're extremely tanky because you have kept fire res. I'll just show you how you're capping it. You're capping it with this. This gives you 8. And you're capping it with this. This gives you 6. That caps your fire res for you. So yeah, you get full capped fire res, and then you're abusing Altered Flesh, or the conversion to fire. Your fire is at the highest possible. The fizz gets taken as chaos is fizz. Take less fizz damage, 20% less fizz because of CI. So that's extremely tanky. In terms of personal preference, you can take Eternal Youth. You don't have to take Eternal Youth. It's up to you. Personally, I took it just so it's a bit safer for me. It means that my flask is actually usable to heal me. It's just a personal preference thing against bosses. That's all. Also helps against damage over times, which you do sometimes ignite yourself from Infernal Flame, sorry. So that's more or less the end of this build. This setup is not mapping viable. So I'll just show you quickly what you need to do to make this mapping viable. It's pretty easy. All you need to do is you need to just swap these boots off because they have no move speed and just put on a pair of boots like this. These are relatively expensive, but they just got good move. They got good move speed, they got good ES, and they got res. That's more or less all you need. Or you can get a pair of boots like this. This was the previous pair of boots I had. So that will give you 35% move speed. It will let you map a bit better. But mapping is pretty bad on minions because the AI is going to shit and they get stuck and stuff. And you have to use that weapon swap tech to move them around. And so personally, I just couldn't be bothered mapping. I just literally did simulacrums, like 100 plus simulacrums in the past 3 days. I farmed like probably like 100 to 200 divines. And I'm calling it the end for this build because I put all my money into investments and I'm going to let them sit there and let them grow money while I try something else. In terms of what else you can run, if you don't want to run this club, you can run this shield. I do think the amount of damage the club gives you is kind of ridiculous. I think you would run this like anyways, even if you like, oh, you're concerned about defenses, run this shit anyways because your frost mages will freeze on their first hit anyways. So mobs will just get frozen instantly. It's not really a big concern. I do run this in Simulacrum. I just sit there and I more or less AFK. I press Pain Offering, I press Curse sometimes when the boss appears. I make sure that my ES is not dropping, and when it is, I walk around a tiny bit so that all the Grim Feast remnants will get picked up, and I'll immediately get back to like 10,000 ES because of Grim Feast. Extremely broken, very likely to get nerfed. I think that more or less covers all of it. For next build, I'm probably going to play some sort of Sunder Totem build. I saw Palstrom made a video, it looked pretty interesting, so I'm going to play Sunder Totems. I'm going to play Resonating Strike, the slamming your shield skill. I saw some tech with Herald of Ice on that, and it allows you to basically pop entire packs of mobs. So I was thinking of running that for clear and Sunder Totems for like a boss swap with Sunder Totems for damage like on bosses. It's going to be on Gemling probably, and Strength stack for HP. That's what I'm thinking at least. But yeah, that more or less covers it. Thanks for watching. I'm documenting this for myself so I can come see this in the future when I ever want to come see what build I made for my first PoE2 access. But this build has been extremely solid. It has cleared every single boss without any issues at all. I have not needed to buy bosses for any of these, and it's been really good for Simulacrum, which has been a ridiculous amount of profit. In terms of actual profit, I will show a quick sneak peek of what I've been working on. Just give me a second here, I'll pull it up. It's basically, I tracked 60 Simulacrums, like a lot of them. So, show you the starter here. I've tracked 30 Simulacrums in difficulty 1 and 30 Simulacrums in difficulty 2. I started tracking some Simulacrums in difficulty 3, but because it's the end of the build for me, I think I'm just going to call it for Simulacrums. Like, I'll just keep it at that for the data. But yeah, tracked all the different memories that dropped, tracked what unique dropped, which is the main thing, because the Melting Maelstrom unique is worth the most. That's the Flask for mana stackers. And I'll just show a quick sneak peek on what you see here. So you can see here that the total memories, the total exalts, sorry, that you gained. So the total memories went up when you went up a difficulty, but my total exalts went down for each Simulacrum run. This is on average. And the reason why is because I got very lucky with isolations in my first 30 runs, and I only dropped one isolation in my second 30 runs, like in the second difficulty. When I say second difficulty, I mean 2 points into the Simulacrum tree, and then first difficulty is no points in the Simulacrum tree. But yeah, it's just variance. But it seems to be about 120 exalts profit. Not sure if these prices have changed. These were inputted yesterday, but probably not. They will probably change by the time you look at the video. And then I also did some calculations on the uniques that you get. What are the ratios? What is the chance that you drop the big reward unique, which is the Melting Maelstrom Flask? In the first 30 runs, I dropped 2. In the second 30 runs, I dropped 2. Obviously, 30 runs is not a very big data set. I think 60 runs is considerably bigger, but it's still, obviously, you want more. Seems to be about a 6% chance based on the values I have here. With that, we can now calculate how much money are you actually making by running Simulacrum. I just did this as a project for myself to see whether this was profitable or not. Looks to me like you're making about 2.5 div per hour, and this one says 1.5, but remember, this is the isolation causing variance in the data. It's probably around 2 to 3 divines per hour, just purely from Simulacrum, from Flask drops and from memory drops. This does not include any exalts that drop in Simulacrum, does not include any jewelers, any level 20 skill gems, level 20 spirit gems, does not include any of that. But yeah, that's that part there. In terms of whether this is profitable, depends on how fast you run it. Every run for me was taking 12 minutes, and I was basically half paying attention watching YouTube on my second monitor, because my build was really tanky and I didn't really need to pay attention. It means I could run 5 per hour, and you can see here that profit per hour is that many divs. This value here is what cost does the Flask need to be for you to break even doing Simulacrums. So basically, if the Flask drops down to 16 to 19 divs, it'll probably be around 17 or 18 divs. You're not actually making any money doing Simulacrum, you're actually just breaking even. And then this one here is the amount of net worth you need to buy enough Simulacrums to hit the flask on average. So with the 60%, that's 15 runs on average that you need to hit it. So you need 15 runs on average, 15 Simulacrums to get the flask, which means that you need this much investment to actually do Simulacrums and make a profit. Oops. But yeah, that's just the short data I gathered for Simulacrum. I may make a video, like a proper one, like I farmed 30 Simulacrum video, I'm not sure yet, we'll see. Probably not because I'm trying my new build, but I also did some testing to see where the boss spawns. So each room basically has a fixed location for the boss, and the only reason why this is important is so that I can put my Sigil of Power and stand in the location where the boss spawns, so that my Frost Mage will target the closest minion, and so as soon as he spawns, he'll get frozen and killed, because for some of the high difficulties, he does quite a lot of damage, especially if I'm just AFKing, right, or trying to AFK, like trying to basically do nothing as much as possible. So yeah. It looks like the boss spawns are pretty RNG. Like, sometimes this closest spawns, sometimes both spawns, sometimes only Omniphobia spawns. There's not really any like particular pattern to it. At least I couldn't notice one in the short testing I did. But yeah, that covers the build. That covers what I farmed. Simulacrum for basically 3 days straight. It gives you a lot of money. That covers basically how I bought 35 Divine Amulet, 15 Divine Gloves. This was 17 Divine Scepter. That's how you kind of farm this. So basically you want to pick a build that's really good. So I noticed that my minion build sucks at mapping. It sucks at doing anything that's like blasty content because there's no heralds or no spread. It also sucks at breach. So I decided, okay, what's the thing that I don't need mobility for? Turns out to be bossing and Simulacrums. And Simulacrums had the flask, and I looked at the ratios and they seemed pretty good. So I spammed the shit ton of them to gather data, basically for my own science. And turns out it's very profitable. But yeah, that covers the build. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And to the future with me, if I end up watching this, hey, you cleared all the content with your own build. Thanks for watching.